Yep, 2-0 from the first leg. Newcastle were in fine fettle at that point, but as Dan just said there in the commentary, lost a couple of games at home, but maybe...
Yeah, but have scored, so they could lose 2-1 and still go through.
Indeed. They've got this game on their mind, certainly, so it should be fascinating. Jack Cunningham's talkSPORT.com's Newcastle writer. Hi, Jack.
Afternoon, chaps. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're not so bad. I want to talk to you about the game. Sorry, not the ground first before we talk about the game. Luke Edwards in the Telegraph today has written an interesting piece. It seems that the favoured option at the moment amongst the hierarchy is to build a new stadium, 70,000-seater stadium, right next to St James's Park. It might mean, Luke says, possibly playing in Edinburgh, 120 miles away for the closing stages of building it, but it will be amazing. The other option is to redevelop St James's Park. That'd be 60,000, or to move out of town a little bit, which I don't think people want. What's your favoured option, Jack? What would you like to see?
Well, for me, I think Newcastle should stay at St James's Park. I think it's one of the most iconic grounds in the country. Yeah, I've got a place that I've got some incredible memories at, of course, some not so good memories as well. But I think overall, as a venue to watch football, there's not many like it around in England. If you look at how central it is into the city centre, I think there's 120 pubs within a mile radius, pretty good for all the fans involved there, in the sense of like an away day. I think you speak to any away fans, they always seem to love coming to Tyneside, going into St James's Park. Don't get us wrong, it's a trek up those stairs, but it's usually worth it by the time anyone gets there. And I think you speak to anyone and they'll say that this is a stadium that they enjoy visiting and they enjoy spending time at. And I think for Newcastle fans, it's difficult because obviously we are consistently being pushed the fact that PSR and ultimately a new stadium would bring in more revenue. Would it necessarily lead to more fans getting in? I don't necessarily think that's the case, because you're going to have more corporate seats and more hospitality seats, because that's where the money is. So I don't think, even though they're looking at, I think it was 70,000, just below 70,000, but a lot of those extra seats would be corporate and hospitality. And then are you actually then just freezing out the working class fans who make up Newcastle's fan base? Newcastle as a club is a one city club. Pretty much everyone born on Tyneside supports the Toon, and the Toon is probably their life in many ways. And I am totally against a new stadium, actually. I think any way we could stay at St James's Park is the way forward.
It's very interesting, this, because it's a bit like what's going on at Chelsea. I'm sorry to disagree with you, but I don't agree with you. 18,000 extra seats will not be 18,000 corporate seats for once. And the problem is, for the club to progress and to be able to spend the money they need to spend to keep up, they're going to have to develop a stadium that will do this. It's progress. I don't see how. And of course, it's a wonderful place to go, as the Bridges. These old grounds, Goodison is a wonderful place to watch football. But in the end, if Everton want to progress, they had to do that move to Stanley Dock, and it's amazing. And
it does kind of take out part of the Leazes and the Milburn stand. So it's right next. The new stadium is right next to St James's Park. It's not the kind of out of town option, is it?
Yeah, that's more palatable. I think that there was the potential that it was going to move entirely from where it currently is, and I think that would have been something massively against. Certainly, I would have been certainly against it. I think most Newcastle fans would have been against it as well, because it is such a great location. Although you have got the issue of where on earth are they going to play? I know Luke Edwards said, go to Edinburgh, but that is such a logistical nightmare for fans to get there. And having home games in Edinburgh, I mean, obviously the only stadiums close by, the Stadium of Light. I cannot see Sunderland ever letting that happen.
Good luck with that.
Can you imagine the scenes on the streets of Sunderland if we're we're going to share the ground with Newcastle?
Yeah, it's not
absolute
not going to happen. Mate, let's move on to the game, shall we? As I said, I know one of our guys put this to Eddie Howe the other day, that maybe they had their mind on this Carabao Cup competition. But I think Eddie wasn't particularly having that. But you have kind of sensed it last couple of games. There's a lot of focus on this, because this is a great opportunity for the club, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, obviously Newcastle got to the final in 22-23, lost to Manchester United in the end. In the build-up to that game, the final and the other semi-finals, Newcastle's league form started to drop as well, because ultimately a lot of these players have not had these experiences either where they used to be, or certainly not at Newcastle. If you think of a player like Sean Longstaff, who spent most of the time battling relegation, And so and then suddenly he's got a chance now of potentially being in a team who's going to win a trophy. I think going into tonight, I'm extremely nervous. I think most people are, even though Newcastle have a 2-0 lead. But this is Newcastle United we're talking about, a club who have not won anything since 1969. The last domestic trophy was in the 50s. It's a club that, until it wins something, it'll always be the team who can find some way, no matter what, to lose these sort of big games. And I think another thing that's making people nervous is if it'd been like the competition usually is, where it's a week and then you've got the weekend and then the following week you play the second leg.
I agree.
I think most people would have been confident that Newcastle would have probably breezed through. But a month's a long time in football. And since then, Arsenal have cruised in the Champions League, finished third in the league phase easily. They've just come off smashing Manchester City 5-1. Don't get us wrong, it's not the Manchester City teams of old, we know that. But I still think a 5-1 win at home against the Premier League champions is such a huge result. They're going to come to Tyneside extremely confident, feeling great. And then Newcastle, meanwhile, have lost their last 2 home games to Bournemouth, who, Bournemouth, don't get us wrong, having an amazing season, but losing 4-1 at home to Bournemouth, that's pretty brutal. And then at the weekend, 2-1 to Fulham. And after the game, Howe said that Newcastle didn't play well. And there wasn't like there was any injuries, or it was the team that will be playing tonight. It was the exact same starting 11 that will play tonight. So you've got to think that maybe their minds were on it. So I get there's definitely nerves around that. And then I think it's all going to be, well, if you look at talkSPORT.com, we've got a piece from Shearer saying if Arsenal score first, the tension in the ground.
Sure, yeah.
That'll be something else.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's difficult from an Arsenal point of view. They want to get on the front foot, get an early goal, get the crowd nervous, get Newcastle players nervous, but they get hit on the break. You've got enough players. Enough players that are on the break, and they're suddenly at 3-0. They've got a mountain to climb. So it's going to be a real game of chess, I think, tonight.
No, it totally will be. I think it's interesting how Newcastle are going to approach it. Do Newcastle approach the game as if they just say it as 0-0 and try and get an early goal and basically say, right, that's the tie over, play like how Newcastle do play under, or try to play under Howe, with the aggressive press and squeezing up the pitch and trying to get the ball into Gordon and Isak and creating opportunities that way, Bruno Guimaraes and Tonali sort of dictating the midfield? Or do Newcastle sit back and try and hit on the counter-attack with the knowledge they have a 2-0 lead? The only issue with that, I feel, is the crowd would start to get a little bit tense and nervous. And also, if Arsenal nick a goal at any point in the first half, if Arsenal score first, then suddenly the game entirely changes. And I think Arsenal will certainly feel that at that point they can go on and turn it around. And it's a likely thing. I mean, if you look at the last 32 League Cup semi-finals, only one team's got through from a 2-0 deficit, goal deficit. So it's not a likely thing, but it's going to be interesting to see how Newcastle approach the game. I really hope they come out, go for it, throw themselves into it, try and get an early goal, try and kill the tie off, and then can start thinking about the final against either Liverpool or Tottenham.
Nice one, Jack. Enjoy the game as much as you can. It's going to be tense. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Cheers, lads.
And try not to concede a corner if I was
just don't concede any corners. Jack Cunningham there, talksport.com, Newcastle writer. Live on TalkSport, this one tonight from 7 o'clock, all the build-up, 8 o'clock kick-off with Adrian Durham and James's Park, Sam Matterface and Stuart Pearce. You think it's in for a long night? You can see it going to extra time, can you?
We could easily, but I've got a sneaking feeling. And Newcastle have done well against Arsenal, haven't they?
Yeah, they've often matched that well. And they've got
and
the players to hurt them
for it. And I
think Tonali needs a big game tonight. Definitely.
Yeah, structurally they're better than Manchester City. They've got at the moment.
Well, we shall see.
We'll see.
Paul Hawksby and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSport app and on your smart speaker. TalkSport.